we're at the firehouse the other day, and we're sitting around after food just talking, and the idea of the simulation theory comes up. Yeah.
We've been chatting.
You know the simulation theory.
We've been chatting.
So we'll go to the basics. The basics of simulation, and the most compelling is we are in a simulation right now. So everything you know, everything you experience, it's all fake world. None of it is real.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun thing to think about. I mean, quite frankly, it's, the reasons of why you exist is very compelling. And I think diving into this has been rather, exciting for people that have never heard anything about it. It's pretty awesome.
I think it makes a lot of like theological or,
the old philosophy class.
Yeah, I was going to say it makes philosophical questions much
Right.
more approachable because it feels like something I could believe. Like I've seen a video game, so if I'm living in a video game, I can kind of understand the questions that I'm asking.
Well, let's dive in. We made a couple notes. Let's dive into the nuts and bolts of what it is, and then we'll kind of get into some discussions. Just so anybody never heard about it before,
Sure.
let's kind of walk them through it.
So firstly, Nick Bostrom's the guy that does it. I think 2003 is when he has this theory. And this theory is not specifically simulations are definite and you are in one. It's more there are three possibilities.
Right.
First is intelligent species go extinct before they can make any of this kind of stuff. So they just
Nuclear bomb, any type of thing that just the technologies they produce end up biological weapons, something wipes everybody out.
We kill ourselves out. Yeah.
Right.
So we just don't. And we could be there. We could be this close to nuking ourselves to oblivion, and so we never create simulations.
Right.
Two would be we can reach that technology, and then we just decide not to. For whatever reason. We just decide not to.
Which I have some thoughts on.
Sure. And then we'll go to the third one, which I think is the one that everyone just assumes is true of this, which is intelligent species can create, they do create, and therefore we are just as likely as not to be in a simulation that is created by another species.
Well, a simulation is kind of a weird thought because everyone, I think, was introduced to it in a very real way with the movie series The Matrix. You're plugging into it. It's this full-blown world of normalness, really. It's the world as you know it. And it was very crazy to think of it fictional. And I don't even remember when the series was. I believe The Matrix was before that, but I'm not sure. I thought that was in the 90s. But
no, I think you're right. I think it was 90s.
Yeah, so maybe, the theory was based on whoever kind of thought that up.
Maybe he just was so jazzed by Neo. He's like, this has got to be real. I want it to be real.
And Morpheus inspired this maybe. But no, I think it's just kind of crazy if you think about it in terms of the simulation to me is the idea of the why, or why would you ever need to do a simulation? And I think there's a whole lot of reasons that are super compelling. I mean, entertainment for one. I don't think that you would argue with anybody that entertainment.
It's what we already do.
Right. You playing video games, you want to go on a trip, but you're a little unhealthy. You've eaten a little too much in your day. You've got diabetes. You need to stay close to home. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you want to go to Egypt? Throw these goggles on. It's going to be the real deal.
Right.
In the short, I see all kinds of reasons why you would want to be in a simulation or have access to it. But the idea that this is a simulation currently,
it's a step up because like what you're describing is really like I'm aware that simulation exists and I'm using it to accomplish my goal.
Right.
So I plugged myself into the simulation to go experience. But I don't feel that way right now, and you don't feel that way right now. So this is a whole different level of like the simulation exists and I don't know it.
Right.
And that's a weirder place to be because like why would that simulation exist?
It's true. I think what we should discuss that would be fun is if you can get your head wrapped around like true reasons of why you would need it.
Yep.
When you go down that path, all of a sudden you put your tinfoil hat on. Mm-hmm. You get the magic fires burning.
Right.
And it makes a whole lot of sense of why there would even be a possibility of a simulation.
So let's start with that then. Like what would be a reason that you would create a simulation where the participants don't know they're in it?
Here's my best.
Okay.
My best guess, okay? Is everybody ready for this? So picture this.
I'm there.
You've got a chopped off arm. In 100 years, we can grow it back. Mm-hmm. You've got an ear issue. You can't hear quite right. medicine can fix your hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Easy peasy. We grow genes. We can do all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, the human body now can last 300 or 400 years just due to modern medicine. But we still haven't figured out how to really turn back the clocks. Maybe you're in this window of which technology is multiplying. How old's the iPhone? Think about the first one to this one.
Right.
You're talking about a really small segment.
Mm-hmm.
With the advances in medicine, you may be looking at 150 years, maybe they're able to completely grow back an arm.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to prolong the youth a little bit longer. All of a sudden, the average age is 150. Then it's 200. Then it's 250. The one thing that I think is insane is as soon as you take the threshold over, think about it, a scientist. When is he at his prime? Maybe 38 to 60, maybe 70, maybe 80, but it kind of just depends on when the health begins to decline, where the mental capacity is not going to keep up. So I find the most compelling argument to be, as the arc goes now, if you're thinking in parallels of how there could be a simulation, think of in 150 or 200 years of if you've moved the body into living 300 years and the mind's got more left in it, wouldn't you want to simulate the baby mind, the young mind, to be ready sooner? So what I mean by that, if the body's going to get worn out, and we know the technology advances can really exponentially grow in the years of locked in greatness, right? So if you're going to live to be 300 years old, but it takes an individual maybe 30 to 40 years to find themselves and really become a functioning brain. What if you could take a 20-year-old, run them in a simulation, give them multiple existences, all in a blink of an eye, because it's fast. They sit in a tank for 30 days. They've lived 5 different lives that built their subconscious, taught them tons of skills, all happen in a blink of an eye.
And probably like morality. Like they're learning how to love, how to be, how to interact, how to care,
right,
do all those things. And you're saying like in the course of a weekend, now all of a sudden they're 120 years old in the mind.
Yeah, you got to think. I mean, in the Matrix, it's always interesting when you think of these creative people that come up with these concepts. But it's interesting. You close your eyes, he does the little deal, and now he knows kung fu.
Right.
And the movie portrayed that as like, boom,
right. It's like a download.
But what if it was actually that download is literally him learning in a simulated fashion? What if he was there for 35 years learning in a simulation?
Right.
But it's a snap of a finger. He downloaded that as the exterior world. It downloaded instantly.
Yeah.
But in his brain, it was a 30-year experience of learning the true essence of Kung Fu. And if you think about it like that, when you move through life, the body lasts longer and longer. And then wouldn't you want to backtrack and say, well, we've got the technology to give the brain what it needs to even move it to 20. Now we can make everybody geniuses at 20.
Right.
Now think of the mental capacity and the exponential growth we can get.
So
boom.
I like what you've got there. Here's the depressing part that I'm seeing.
Man, I thought it was foolproof.
No, it's very foolproof. But if that's true, that person, like, why would they need to not know that they're in the simulation? They could know that they're in a simulation. It's fine. So that means that if I don't know and you don't know, and that is the reason that it's happening, we're just side characters. We're NPCs walking around with our only purpose to be something that if some simulated mind is walking through, they can encounter us.
I was going to interrupt you before that, but you got to like a worser point.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad.
I don't want to be a puppet.
No, you're you are an NPC.
I'm definitely the puppet. No, that's a little grueling. That's kind of hard to swallow.
Right. Well, I mean, you got to imagine though, if I'm creating a simulated universe and it is a synthetic, fully, like there is no 1-to-1 ratio. Every human that exists is also in the simulation. But instead we're filling it out with teachers, instructors, life partners, then there's a really good odd that you are not the important person in this.
The only trump card is just like every argument. You always can see the easy cop out of, well, the creator would know that the true way to understand it at its fullest is, of course, to be unknowing and come to the conclusion yourself, right?
Sure, yeah.
But what in life have you ever just got handed to you that you were an expert in?
Well, to your point, every time I dream, I'm not aware that I'm in a dream, but I have an experience of the dream. And it's not like I went to sleep that night. Like I knew I was going to sleep, and yet I am fooled every time I'm in a dream. So it could even just be, yeah, I went to sleep into this simulator, knowing I was going into a simulator. And then I experienced this entire thing as a dream.
Right.
And then I wake up, however, we'll say I die at 72. I wake up at 72 years old here, but there a weekend passed, and I go, oh my gosh, I forgot I was in a simulation. All right, well, what's my next one?
Yeah, but you could also think of it in terms of, you get pieces of reincarnation embedded in this. You get pieces of other thought dialogue and things.
Now we're talking theology in the midst of this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Well, okay, go there.
Give me I wanted to hear your take on what would be your ultimate scenario. Before we get too crazy, I got to hear, why does it exist?
All right, you want Dark World or you want, Happy World?
Let's do Dark.
Okay,
Let's do
Dark World. Dark World is it's completely meaningless. So Dark World is this advanced civilization. And they don't have to be anything like us. They can be absolutely alien to us.
So for full context, is your dark version the one where it's 200 or 300 years from now in what we know? So it'd be,
oh no,
technology evolves, moves forward.
It's even worse than that.
Okay.
The dark version is the title, the worst simulation ever. The dark version is we don't matter at all. We are an accident. So the dark version is this other species that is completely different than us creates this simulation for the sole purpose of X. And we'll just say X is, I want to know what it looked like when the Big Bang kicked off. Well, I want to know what it would look like if we did the Big Bang with only 3 dimensions instead of the 18 that they live in, whatever the thing is. So they create a physical universe with physical laws and the intention of it running as if it were fully real. And then they click start, Big Bang, doom, and everything goes the way it's supposed to go.
And the galaxy is so big.
The universe.
We're on the other side of it, and they don't even know we exist.
Don't even know. They're sitting here looking, so in 3 dimensions, these things, when they collide, they obliterate. That's crazy. And here we are going, I learned how to talk, Mom. There's nothing. They don't even know that we exist. And so then, all right, well, we've run our simulation. It went through the whole thing, and that's quite interesting. Okay, reboot. And we existed, and they never knew it. That's the darkest version I can think of.
It's just so hard to think that something like that could exist without intention. When you build consciousness, or I get that you could technically, you're blending religion / pure science in the phase of
right.
Big Bang. So if you take Big Bang and you say, it just depends where you kind of place everything. But if you put the hierarchy of rules in place and let the simulation run, to me, it's odd to think that you grew real consciousness in a computer program and these things are all doing stuff. But I tell you, I just had this thought, what about Facebook? Facebook made the little robots that chatted with each other, and they started arguing and talking in different languages, and they couldn't control them anymore.
Right.
I mean, isn't that kind of sort of possibly the same thing?
So, sure. I guess where I'm really going with this dark version is that there's no intentionality behind it. So it is very similar to the non-theological idea whatsoever, where it's just randomness.
Right.
The universe exists. So we'll take simulation theory out of it. We'll just say there's only one base theory, only one base reality. There will never be a simulation. None of that matters. What he says, we say we're in the second one. It never exists. We just don't ever create it. So in that singular base reality, assuming there is no God, assuming there is no higher being, assuming there's nothing like that, that's what that looks like. We randomly exist for no reason. We are, bumping into each other throughout our existence, and whatever we do is whatever we make of it. Otherwise, the galaxy goes on and does what it does. But now you insert that same idea into the simulation theory, and that's what's happening to the creators of this simulation that don't even know we exist. We have no meaning to them. We have no experience with them. They don't even know that we exist, and it still runs.
It kind of makes me sad reflecting on
it's awful.
I mean, that's kind of like, there's so many little goals in life. How do you be a better parent? How do you excel at this?
Meaningless.
How do you, do something better? How do you help the environment? How do you, all of it for
you
all
exist
for none?
You exist because they want to see what happens when two galaxies go boosh.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was, when I was in my deep hole of every YouTube video I could possibly find on the topic, learning about stuff and reading a bunch of articles, one thing I thought was instantly the aha moment was Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's talking about an example in one of his interviews of they created some form of a futuristic what's the word I'm looking for? They're trying to tell the future more or less. They can't figure out what's going on in what they're seeing through the telescope. So they made an algorithm or made something that would compute to show that when two galaxies collided, what would it look like?
If we know how the physics work,
right,
and we have the physical laws down, we can just simulate anything that we want to know and then run it.
Right, so they ran the simulation, the galaxies collided, and then it looked a lot like what they were actually viewing, and he took that as, that simulation was how we utilized a simulation. Well, how do you not take that concept and think telling the future is one of the most compelling reasons why anybody would ever want to simulate? If you could figure out ocean currents and be able to simulate what they're going to do in 150 years, then that you better tell Florida people, you guys are going to have to move.
You need to move uphill.
It's going to happen.
I mean, that's a really good example of like, all right, what does ecology look like? What is, we're coming to a new concern. What if we throw an asteroid at this? Because we're about to hit an asteroid, So let's run a simulation where what happens to Earth at a pretty high technology point, we'll say, when an asteroid hits. Let's do it. It's kind of what we did during when we were first trying to figure out how bad is the nuke. We'd build these fake cities, we'd do all this kind of stuff, and then we'd blow up the nuke. And then go, oh, well, this is what happens to a city when we blow up a nuke. A simulation could very much just be that. Hey, we're gonna hit by an asteroid, and we want to know what does this look like? How bad does this get? What do we need to do to survive it? So now we'll rerun the simulation, and we'll say people live underground. Okay, now we'll rerun the simulation and say we saved all the trees, and now we'll they get to try all of the ideas they have.
But from
dry run,
even now, what we know as reality is there's always the political drive. There's always big powers to be that control a lot of what happens in the world, and I just think it's super compelling to think of 2,000-3,000 years, whatever it is, down the road. How do you not have a governmental body that would say, let's run the simulation of our past that we know how to control it. We know how to build the ground rules of it. But it comes to, how do we not blow each other up? You think of the Cold War, right? Say they had a scenario where that happens in 2,000 years. What decisions could we have made down the road to not actually blow each other up today?
Right.
So the committee all meets. They run simulation after simulation, implanting different pieces in it to understand what decision they should make going forward. We see that we might have some conflict in this scenario. So what decision should we make now? Should we send this nuke at them? Should we not? Should we, what does it look like? Or the asteroid thing is always the most compelling. If you could map out everything in our sky and then show when it's going to hit, well, there you go. There's D-Day.
Yeah, that's... And is there a way to change that? Okay, well, if we've simulated that it's going to hit on D-Day here, what if we hit it with a rocket D-Day minus 100 years?
Right.
All right, well, now it'll never hit us again because we derailed its path.
Sure.
Well, all right, well, let's just run simulations and see how long it takes before Earth hits a rock.
Right. So what is your happy version?
Okay, my happy version. So the happy version is maybe more of a, like, it is an enlightening experience. It is we are running this simulation to understand who we are better. So this could be like an alien or a future human sociologist that's just trying to figure out, like, hey, these major events in history, the genocides, the things like that, they are clearly a part of who we are in some way. We're capable of it. We do it. What are the moments in those where we turn away from it? What does that look like? Can I study it more? Can I understand why they don't persist? Why haven't we just wiped each other out yet? Why haven't we just completely, annihilated humanity in a genocidal fashion just because that's what we do? Well, kind of like with the nuke story, like how do we avoid this nuking of ourselves? Well, you run a bunch of simulations to find out, like, in all of these moments of history where we have almost killed each other, why did we not? What stopped it? So in the same way, this might not have been their actual history. This might just be, this is how humans think, and this is how the physical world works. Let's put humans thinking in the physical world and see, heck, maybe we're the only one yet that hasn't nuked ourselves out. Now, maybe we're the one that always will nuke ourselves out. And actually, there's another one. I think of, you remember the Marvel Cinematic Universe where Doctor Strange is sitting there mind melding or like traveling basically through mental meditation into the future. He's
right,
and he's looking for, can we win this fight? And they go, is there a possibility? Are we in the one? And then you move on through. I don't want to ruin this movie for anyone that hasn't seen it. Like, it's been out for almost a decade.
I was going to say 10 years. I think we're past those,
But let's, he's trying to infuse hope. He's trying to infuse this thing, and he gives him this is the one. And at that point, that's all Stark needs to be like, okay, then I'm willing to sacrifice everything to make the one, because I know it'll work.
Do you think, though, in the futuristic version of it all, though, that you would really have anything? So from the perspective of a governmental body or like a big business that wants to know if they're going to make the next ecological move or the next, imagine if you were the men who built America, right? So imagine if you were the steel industry. Imagine if you could predict which industry would be most popular next. So a big business in a sense.
Like, what's the best way to make money with this prospect, basically?
Sure. Like, here's a good example. Apple, biggest company in the world right now. Google, of course, right up in the mix. But take Apple, for example. What if they could run a simulation to where you would know what the next technology would be because you didn't even make it? Like, you don't even know what it is, but you just set the ground rules.
Yeah.
You gave them an iPhone, you built the groundwork for it, and then you let the simulation come up with a new product that you haven't even made yet.
So you're saying basically
it's money. It's always money driven.
Right, but that's an interesting thing too, because what I've been talking about all the way through is like, all right, we're learning from our past, or we're learning from an earlier version of us.
You're thinking, I think you're thinking too.
But
I'm kumbaya. We want to know the future.
You asked for the good version. I gave you the good version.
I'm just thinking though. I'm like, as you're talking, I'm like, is it really just what it always is?
Someone chasing $1.
Someone got to give me some money.
Well, but you do bring up a point, because while you can set the parameters to start in your history, you can make the time of a simulation rapidly accelerate so that technically the people in the simulation would surpass you. So now they have more technology than you have. It's fake technology because they're a simulation. But you know what I mean? Like, they actually are further ahead than you because the timeline is so much faster.
It's a pretty good one.
Well, you're not wrong.
It's a pretty good one.
Because then at that point, yeah, you really do sit there and go, all right, well, we'll run 1,000 simulations, and when this, fake species figures out how to make simulations, how do they monetize it? All right, we'll say this is day one. Like, this is day one of them being able to build a simulation.
As soon as you get a hint of a product, then your dreamers, your think tank thinks up, and then maybe you even implant the product that you interpreted out of what they could have done, and then you put that in there, and then you see what industry spawn. I mean, take it in kind of correlation of what's going on right now. If no one thought to utilize solar panels, and you went and you saw a hint of it in society, and you were like, we should be making why did we not make solar panels?
Right.
We should make solar panels. So now you're in the real time and you're saying, okay, so how do I get the lobbyists? How do I get people to help me along the way to build the solar panels, to be able to afford it? Because this technology doesn't exist. So I've got to get all these puzzle pieces moving in the real world. I know that solar panels could actually be extremely profitable, and it may be the actual end game. Now, I don't know how to exactly make the technology just yet, but we'll start kicking it down the road. Just like anything else, takes a while to develop.
I'll hit rewind and watch what they did, and then I'll just do that.
Right. So, I mean, when you think about it like that, it's kind of super compelling to go, okay, if you want to... It's hard for me to wrap my brain around my life doesn't matter. But if you were, this reasoning means
it does
that
matter.
it is.
It absolutely matters.
But you know what I mean?
Now, it only matters because a company's trying to sell solar panels, but at least there's purpose.
Right. But do you see what I mean, though? With
Absolutely.
That version means that you're not plugged in.
No, it means you are 100% digital. You exist in the system only, and technically you don't come out. You're just part of it. Now,
so maybe the simulations actually, it could be even broader of the simulations built a population. And now everybody just runs tests on them.
So, So as you're talking about that, I'm sitting here thinking, how weird would it be if a simulation of a simulation of a simulation. What if this organization, this species, this whatever, goes through, I mean, you think about like Rome. Rome falls, and then all of a sudden people forget how to make aqueducts, and people forget how to do all these crazy things. Like they've broken society, and society is falling apart. So future, deep into the future. That's what's happened. Society's fallen apart. Everything's, and they find this simulation box, and someone can figure out how to make it work. And then they just start running simulations to go, well, how do we rebuild what we've lost? All right, well, let's run a simulation that starts from all the parameters we can remember from our history, and we'll go from there. Oh, they started making solar power. Okay, yeah, we can do solar power because we're near a sun. They're on some starship somewhere. All right, we're near a sun. We can do solar. We can figure out how solar panels work because they showed us how it worked. And so they're basically leeching off of these simulations ideas because they can't think of it for themselves. It's all gone.
Yeah.
And so now they're rebuilding their golden age potentially just by watching simulations live through their golden age. Like, that is super weird, but very possible.
Yeah, I agree. I have to make you discuss this. This is what you mentioned when you first got here, and we were chit-chatting a little bit about this scene. And I feel like this scene really would resonate with a lot of people for another why. So we all agree that potentially, or, not exactly we all agree. Most people think a little bit more micro, but when you get in the think tanks of the world, sooner or later, something in space is going to smoke the Earth, right?
Sure.
You've seen the movies. You got Interstellar. That might not even be the premise, but that's all I could think of.
Armageddon.
Yeah,
boom.
Armageddon. Boom. Okay. You had mentioned this is D-Day. It's coming. No matter when it happens in the time span, but you have enough technology where you have to fly off the planet, and we are actually inside of a bunch of little capsules, more of the Matrix feel, all connected to the Matrix so that we can pretend we're living life while we're sleeping in a chamber, going into the abyss of another planet.
Right. Yeah. So,
I mean, that is...
So, yeah.
That's pretty compelling as well.
That whole thing comes out of just the idea of, like, what purpose would a simulation have? And in that purpose, it is, like, to make sure that we're still human when we get there.
Yeah.
Because there's no, like... Perhaps in the future when we figure out how to do cryo sleep or whatever that looks like, you damage things because it's like atrophy. We know that when we send astronauts to space, their muscles atrophy. They lose the ability to walk well, and then their stomach does all like it's bad. Like when an astronaut's in space for like months, they come back and they have a terrible time readjusting to gravity and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll assume the same thing is true of like the mind. Like these synapses are used to firing, but they haven't fired for hundreds of years. We got to make sure they keep firing, because if they don't, we're going to get a bunch of animals when we open these pods up.
Right.
All right. So we run a simulation, and the simulation is just there to make sure they continue to think, feel, experience, love, because we want loving people to show up at Alpha Centauri or wherever we're sending ourselves to. Like,
you just make that name up?
No, man, that's real.
Oh.
That's real stuff.
I was like, what? That was cool. I'm
You
into
know
it.
what?
Did you get it
I
tattooed
did.
on your back? Or
I did make that up, in fact, and I want you to maintain that impressed feeling. I'm gonna make up another one, Pegasus.
I've heard that one before.
Dang it. All
Yeah.
right. I do think. Go ahead. I'll let you run.
Well, I think it's interesting though, because if you can truly get your head wrapped around like a really, really plausible reason why it would be necessary, I think it kind of opens your mind to the idea of when you listen to his reasonings for making his 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is if you believe that mankind didn't go extinct from technology. Mm-hmm. And then the second one is they all choose not to. Mm-hmm. In that scenario of flying off into space to keep your mind active and continue mankind, I don't see how it could be number 2. They choose not to.
You're saying because D-Day is inevitable. This place is blowing up.
Yeah, you would choose to. So if you didn't kill yourself, and number 2, you didn't choose not to because you would, mm-hmm. then this guy, I should say his name again, Nick Bostrom.
Yeah.
He says that you're in a simulation, but I think the hardest thing to get from any of the videos and the papers and things that I had read is a very, very compelling reason that most people, like me, the average guy, can get his hands around and say, yeah, I feel like you would. But the creepy part is when I listened to another discussion, is the simulation on top of the simulation on top of the simulation on top of the simulation kind of gets a little hairy. And I don't know if I'm as on board with that thought process. I think it's more likely only because I can't get away from my own ego and my own
it's
well-being.
It is ego-driven. It's like, why would that be?
But that the flying to another planet thing is extremely compelling of why it could exist.
Here's something that, so like right now, we know that we can't do this. We like, even if we're a simulation that can't accomplish this yet. But we can kind of see how we would do it. But we also know that the computing power it would take and the energy it would take to run this thing and all that kind of stuff is really, really like expansive.
I have a ding.
Right. So keep the ding. All right. So we know that this is very, very taxing. And, according to, I've completely forgot the guy's name, but basically the idea was our computing power is doubling every, so many years.
Yeah, the argument that technology wouldn't be capable,
we'll eventually get there is the idea. So let's assume that we eventually get there and we move to the point where we can do that. Then you're kind of more limited in the ethics of it in some ways. And so that would be a reason why number 2 would happen. We don't believe in doing it because it ethically is not okay. And so while we can, we won't. And I could see, we have the same thing.
Now, do you think that which version of it? The version where you're running simulations and no one's in it? Or the version of the Matrix where you're plugging people in? Which version?
I'm talking the version where you create consciousness in this that has no attachment to your reality. So when you're making a video game and you've got characters that operate within a bounds of your, I've built this character to do this thing, but it doesn't think, it doesn't feel, and it doesn't do what we do. Well, then it's still just an NPC. It doesn't. When it turns off, it doesn't worry about being turned off. None of that exists. But we actually do. Like, we are afraid of death. We would avoid it if we can help it. Like, there's an existential, worry to us about how we end up. So that would mean that that's consciousness, or at least that's kind of the way it's related, which has been being studied for hundreds and thousands of years. So in that case, the idea would be we don't want to create a simulation because we're creating a consciousness or the potential for the consciousness. Because I do believe that in a simulation, because if I've thought of it, I know that, the second and third level up simulator has thought of it. If I can create a simulation that is so accurate to the physical world that somewhere in this universe that I've constructed, consciousness could accidentally form, then can I really run this simulation? Because I'm creating life in some way. I'm creating consciousness. So I think ethically, you might have an argument that says, yeah, but we can't run that simulation.
I think ethics would come into both scenarios, but in that scenario, I don't make that connection. Would you make that connection if you were actually hooked into it? So if everyone was someone, everyone was something.
From the base world.
Yep.
No, I don't think so. I think if everyone was someone, the ethics would be less, maybe more gray, less black and white.
How would you feel about being plugged in and you're simulated, and then in the simulated world, we're then plugged in again in another 10 years with Oculus and everything else, and now you could see where it might be a slippery slope if people are playing first-person shooter games and that technology becomes more and more advanced, and all of a sudden you are creating consciousness even in that level. I mean, is that actually indeed?
Well, I think still you're 1 is equal to 1. All the way down, you still have one consciousness equal to one consciousness, and you're just running a singular consciousness down. Ethics, I think, are a little bit less concerned with that. But me personally, I get ethically concerned when, it would take me out. We are concerned about cloning. Like we have laws against cloning of particular types because we're afraid of cloning a consciousness. And then at what point does cloning, if I've cloned you biologically, I've cloned your genetics, I've cloned your body, but you experience all of life your own way. Well, all I've really done is twinned you. That's not as big a deal. I've created another person the same way that someone can be born. So that's not an ethical issue. But if I create a clone of you who has all of your memories, that can live your life and do all those things, and this person is you, that starts becoming ethically problematic. And that's where the simulation theory would go too. So I've created something out of nothing. This thing does not exist, but it thinks it exists. Is that okay for me who have basically created life?
It kind of it really just depends. And I say that because I think there's two distinct differences in the simulation now. The idea of Armageddon, Bruce Willis, change your life. You know what I mean?
Great movie.
I'm telling you, if you think about it in that scenario of the inevitable coming your way, then if everyone was hooked up to it, I don't really see any of this as being a bad thing.
Yeah, that's the plug-in idea, where one for one consciousness. I'm just plugged in.
And what's interesting, though, is if you took it like that, again, the true compelling reason of why to make it, I think, would be interesting to think, okay, we're flying into space. It's going to take us 500,000 years to get to the closest planet that we think that we could easily inhabit.
Yes. So many lifetimes. There's no way we live that long naturally.
Why not run a simulation on the brain while we found a way to freeze our bodies and or whatever? Run a simulation that peaks at the same time with the same problem. So when you get there, you have full context of what happened in your sleep.
So that would
you wake up.
You would be reincarnating through every lifetime that exists.
Yeah. So
here's the problem with that, and it's going to be a thing. Every generation right now, we are getting more and more people, which would mean more and more plugins. Like, it's fine if there's roughly the same number of people across every generation, but
That's
right
true.
now we're growing. So either more people are being plugged in, which is possible, or we're not one for one and just more code is being written. So that's the only hard part I have with that, because if you have a set number of people traveling from A to B, either, which could be, they're using their genetic material to birth new babies, and then they're plugging those new babies in because we want to be able to repopulate when we get there.
I think we're describing the best book or movie that could ever exist.
Ever?
Hey, call me.
No. Well, I will ruin your day with the best movie that I could have written, and we'll have to do that another time because Pixar will steal this from us, or should. This is going to be bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, don't keep it on live TV. It'll be gone for good. Maybe we'll have to get out and pull our iPhones out. Get the shot. You think we could do it with the iPhones?
I think I've messed with claymation enough that I could definitely butcher this with claymation.
Like picture in picture. I mean, we could do some effects. The stars and the galaxies.
Look at these hands. These hands are building hands. I mean, not with like steel or things that are hard, but like clay,
like toothpicks.
Yeah, like little things.
Yeah, tiny
doilies.
Tiny.
These are the hands of doilies.
Yeah, like to lotion them and keep the rolling the tooth. Yeah.
No, you don't. you don't want to butcher this precision instrument. You got to keep it gentle.
So I read a quote or listened to Elon he said, I would want to ask what's outside the simulation. Now, my question is, which version of that simulation model do you think he's referring to? I think
he's referring to we are all just digital constructs. We are not one for one. We are not plugged in. I think he assumes, that's my guess. I'm thinking he assumes we are just digital products. We have no existence beyond the simulation. This is us.
So the simulation would actually create consciousness. So you are literally an entity, but you can't get out because you're in this program is kind of his world as your interpretation of it.
Yeah. And so to kind of unpack that a little bit more, it's very similar in all reality to like a belief in a god or a deity of some sort, because they are other. They are not of this simulation. They created the simulation. Beings within the simulation only exist because the creator created them. And so it's a little bit more theological note. Like it's the way we have always interacted with that kind of thought, but it's just a new way for relatively science-minded people to interact with the exact same thought, which is, what did Neil deGrasse Tyson say in there? He's like, some 15-year-old hacker in his garage has made this simulation, and here we all are running on his, 25 billion Mac OS, whatever that would look like.
That would be kind of crazy, but the one, so after listening to tons of information, having my own thoughts about it, it's fun to have like a descriptive back and forth with, kicking around the ideas, being a philosopher. I actually hated philosophy in college with a passion. I thought the round and round.
You were doing it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the round and round, it was just not really, and maybe it was just the context. Like, it wasn't directly related to me. We're talking about these old school dudes that are going round and round, and it just didn't really strike home with me.
Well, you're probably too young to have the existential crisis of, you know what, in like 2 years, I might not exist.
I was a late bloomer.
Well, you were bulletproof. Like everyone is at that age. But yeah.
But what I found funny about getting into this one, so you mean to tell me that we've taken the brightest and smartest minds to attack this, and everything that I've watched and listened to, and I'm sure everyone out there has, if you're watching this video, then I know that you've been in some dark holes as well. But to me, it seems like it correlates so much to the idea of religion that you can't just accept religion. You have to come up with a witty, and I don't mean any disrespect. I don't mean it like that. It's just an interesting thought process of like, if you're truly analyzing the true assumption that a simulation does take place and there is an overall creator of that, whether it be the 15-year-old kid, whether it be a business trying to make money, whether it be a government trying to make the best possible decision to keep mankind around, that complicated mess of everything is more of a possible acceptance than the idea of the exact same thing in parallel with what you know of religion.
Right. Like there's a creator, he cares for your existence, and he intends good for you in some way.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that any of these scientists aren't like against religion or anything like that. I just thought it was very interesting that as you listen to more and more arguments, you're literally almost verbatim, more or less, if you took out some of these words that you're using like simulation, you're describing religion.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
So the weird part about that too is it's kind of an invitation for people that otherwise didn't feel like they could interact with. So science as a whole, the understanding of science is we can only test and disprove. Well, I can't really test and disprove God because it's just... There's no test I can do that can do that. But in the simulation, they're thinking, well, I could try and figure out if I can see. So one of the things that they're exploring within science to test whether or not we're in a simulation is there any place where a simulation is shortcutting? And the reason for that is right now with us, we have limited computing capacity, and the assumption is whatever group makes a simulation eventually that we would be a part of would also have some sort of limit to the computing. So if we have a limit to computing, finite resources to do our computing with, then we're going to cut corners because our intention is to make sure the simulation remains real to the simulated, but also doesn't tax our system. So this would look like in a video game. The entire video game world is there in a very broken, like, you go through this door, then this area opens up.
Sure.
But it's not
just changes the rendering times.
Right. It's not all being rendered all the time in full fidelity. It's only rendered when someone moves into it to interact with it. So in the same way, our simulation, like my house right now that I left, if I'm the only simulated being that has true consciousness, it just doesn't exist. I mean, its place is noted, and when I drive my car back and I pull in the parking lot,
sure.
and I open the door, it exists again. And so they're looking for, the scientists that are trying to prove whether or not we're in a simulation, are looking for evidence of that occurring. And so they're going through, staring at like background galactic radiation that is coming all the way from like the Big Bang. And they're trying to see, well, if this thing is that fast and that energized and all of those things, this would be a great opportunity to see a tear in the formula. We created a formula to describe the physical laws. Oops, you looked too close and we couldn't keep it fast enough to catch up. You saw the glitch in the matrix, as it were. And so in those moments, now you've got an opportunity for a scientist to interact with whether or not God, a simulator, is real or not, because I might be able to see it. And so that's kind of been the invitation for science to re-engage with what is essentially theology.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really care to dive into that aspect of it. I just, I thought it was just an interesting observation where more or less you're giving yourself permission to attach it to religion in an odd way.
Right.
That's basically what you're talking about. And normally this is, obviously not the choice for most of these people. And I shouldn't say those people. I actually can't speak for them. I don't really know. Just I would say generally most atheists coming from the scientific community, they just want to be able to prove it.
Yeah, which is all science is. It's can I prove it or can I not prove it? And there's no decision on whether or not it is good or not. It's just can it be proven? It's simple. That's good. That's a good place to be scientifically.
Yeah, it's insanely appealing to see that it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. We got any other questions for them?
Ah, man.
Let's see. Simulations. I think we pretty much hit it all. It's
this. I'll say this. This is a topic that we could re-hit 3 and 4 more times, because I feel like every time I talk about it or I think about it or with a new group of people that I talk to about it, there's a whole new perspective that we end up getting into. I wouldn't mind talking about this again in X number of weeks when someone else has a great idea on the internet and we watch that video and go, ooh.
I do have one more question.
Oh.
One more. Are you excited?
I'm born excited.
Would you plug yourself in?
Oh, like if you're saying like tomorrow
we
did it. We figured it out.
The ship gets shaken.
Okay.
Boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up. You're on a ship. Flying through the abyss.
Mm-hmm. And my thoughts and memories, which I've created right now.
They're with you.
Right.
Yeah. But they're kind of like a dream.
Like I got a long way to go still. Or we're talking like I'm landing.
We're on this ship. Do you land and everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody. Do you plug yourself back in? Do you want to engage in the new world that nothing exists? You had clothes, you had fun, you had skis, you had a sports car, you had, you got to the new world. Yeah. There's literally nothing. You're about to be nomads. You brought technology with you, but it's not what you think. It's a lot of work. It's back trying to build a whole different world. Are you interested in that, or are you going to plug yourself back in?
I think that's a good question, because it does speak to, is reality more important than perceived happiness? And that's really the question that the Matrix is asking when they send is it Cypher, who decides he wants to be plugged back in. I know that this steak is just digital information telling my brain it's good, and I'm eating slurry through my spine hole, but I don't care. I want to be ignorant. I have to imagine that if it is as hopeful as what you're saying, where we have the opportunity to create something new. I think I would want to be a part of that. But it could just as likely be terribly unhopeful, which is there's nothing left, and the only way the human race survives is you get feeding tubes and you live in these little tanks, and that's it. And I don't know about that one.
It would be interesting to be a fly on the wall in that situation, though, of how many people would not want to take place doing any manual labor, rebuilding anything. I mean, you even think of if there was an evacuation process involved, how many different types of people would be getting on that ship, and don't you literally just need laborers?
Yeah. Well,
you have to build, right? You need a small scientific group, I guess, or innovation, but really
everyone else just needs to be labor.
Yeah.
So here's this is maybe an even more likely scenario for us, and I have long held this belief, which means I'm squarely in the field of coward. When we talk about like Armageddon and nukes fly all around the world, and afterwards is like irradiated ground, and it's going to be a struggle, like a hard struggle. And no guarantee to survival. This is going to be bad. You have to shoot your neighbor to get the food you need, all that kind of stuff. I have long said, I hope the nuke lands in my backyard. We're just done.
You're not the grinder. Huh?
I have long said that, and it does speak a little bit to I'm a sissy, and I don't want to deal with that hardship. But I also don't want to deal with that ethical problem of like, I have to shoot my neighbor. Yuck. But on the other hand, like that's the exact same question, just in the simulation scenario.
Yeah.
Oof. Do you unplug? Is reality more important than
it's kind
what
of funny.
you've been able to accomplish here?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because if I woke up, it depends what perspective I would have. If I wake up to a new reality at which I have my own life and this was a dream in my life, I don't know. It depends who I am.
Yeah.
But if this is who I am, I'm a bootstrapper. Put me on the ground, baby. I'm getting in the jungle.
So you want to go back into it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's say
I want to know what's real.
Let's say it's full Armageddon now. Like you can be briefed very quickly. Yeah. It is not good. There is nothing to survive on out there. You've got a slurry of Cocoa Puffs that goes into your mouth in this thing, and that's about it.
If I had a choice and I had to make it and then not turn back, I would choose to stay. If I got to go back in a year, not saying I wouldn't want to readdress it.
Or you're sitting there, you're like, well, it's a lot harder than I thought. Can I plug in now?
I mean, that guy, the Cypher, that's a really good example. I mean, he goes back and wants to eat steaks, and it makes perfect sense. He's overdoing all the stuff. There really is no light. There's no existence. There's just,
very thin hope.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. You might want to be in there. What's the other movie with Jennifer Lawrence? Is that her name?
Oh yeah, when they her and Chris Pratt, and they're traveling across.
I mean, that's a kind of a crazy example. Could you imagine doing that for years and years and years? It's fun as long as you're both getting along, but hopefully you don't have any hiccups.
Right.
I tell you what, though, if I could swim in that pool,
that
would have been.
A cool pool.
Is there a cooler pool?
No.
Does a cooler pool exist over the ocean? Zero entry, whatever.
So I don't know if you're aware, CGI is all fake. You can make really cool stuff in CGI that you could never make in real life.
Wait, say what?
Yeah, it's like computer generated. It's simulation.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to show my appreciation. Every time you like, subscribe, or even comment on a video, it definitely supports my work, and I just wanted to say thank you. Let's get back to the show. So I have a serious question for you.
Which so far we've not had those.
No, this is good. So the question that I must know is, have you ever seen a mermaid?
We're going to talk about mermaids now.
I remember that movie that came out on, what was it, Discovery or what was it?
Yeah, I think it was like Discovery Channel.
Discovery Channel. They never put out anything fictional, so I don't understand why you gave me so much backlash. I had no idea.
I literally have a thing that says aliens of history.
Yeah, because probably they're real. I mean to tell you, though, the time that I watched that mermaid show, I got done with that, and I was like, this is Discovery Channel? Like, do they literally have sounds of these mermaids? Did they really get some,
and they said they did, and they played them.
I almost need to go back and watch it, because I forget all the fun facts that they had. But it was, the video footage when they're weaving it all. I wasn't all in on the video footage. I thought that was obviously made up.
We're doing a reenactment right now.
But they had real recordings, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, audio. You can't fake audio. Cannot fake audio. Visual, that's too easy to fake. It's funny because I do remember you bringing this up, and I remember when you said it at the time, I was like, he's joking with me, right? Like there's no way he thinks this is real.
I mean, I didn't really think it was real, but it was It was a pretty compelling show. I got a kick out of it. I enjoyed. What was it? Discovery Channel. Was Our Mermaids real, or
it was either that, or it was maybe like the History Channel. It was a channel like that has like some sort of clout that says we could be dealing with something true.
Yeah, but the way that it was shot and the way that it was done was like Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, it was documentary
We're
style.
trying to show you that this is what we really got going on.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're pulling back the curtain. We're inviting you in to know reality.
And we're lying about everything.
Which they literally put at the very end of the thing. That if you watched all the way through, they said...
That was a problem.
Jokes.
That was the problem. I missed it.
You just you're like, I saw this whole thing... Honey, you're never going to believe what I saw. And then you walk away from the TV when they go, hey, by the way, all this was BS.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm definitely not that gullible, but when I watched that, I was all in on cracking jokes about that for at least a month because it was a pretty compelling little docu-series they put together with that Mermaids thing, and I really did. I enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious.
I want you to know that shades like the entire outlook my wife has on you. Like she's just like
I've changed her.
Oh yeah,
I've changed her view. Huh?
In that moment when she came up to experience your whole conspiracy vibe, your like any of that thing that you flirt with regularly.
You got to be open-minded.
It's a fun world to live in.
Yeah.
She saw that for the first time, and she goes, and I think in that moment she also wondered, did I marry someone that also does this? And do I have to worry about the belief in mermaids as being like a part of our relationship now? Like you broke fundamentally a lot of our conversations for 6 months.
We haven't actually explored much of the ocean.
We haven't disproven mermaids.
There is still a possibility that they're out there flippering around. You just never know.
Sure, like I won't deny that the possibility exists, but they were like boating out proof. Like this is the proof.
Yeah, the series, or it was just 1 hour or two. I don't even know what it was. It was probably
just
2 hours. It was more official when it's 2. But I was not expecting that coming off of like Shark Week. And by the way, Shark Week is no different. The whole thing is fiction now. I mean, every time I see half of these people doing the most insane things. Okay, I have to go to this one. Last year, did you see what they made those 2 dudes do where they got in the water for like 3 days and pretended it was a shipwreck and cut blood bags open in coolers because they were pretending they were on a fishing boat and then threw them in the middle of the ocean?
No, that sounds like a terrible idea.
Terrible idea. They were trying to, I believe...
There's 2 of them. How many of them got eaten?
Well, none, because they had to bring out a net thing for them to get in so they didn't get eaten. But they wanted them to stay in the water longer so we could keep... Well, did you know that sharks eat people?
I've heard.
Yeah, they eat people, and when there's blood in the water, more sharks come. Did you know that?
That seems like I don't need to throw 2 people in water for 3 days to know any of this.
Yeah, so by memory, I believe it was 2 years ago. If you have not seen this, you should look it up. More or less, they pretend there was a shipwreck, like in the Philippines, kind of a thing.
Right.
I might be making that up. I don't remember if it was the Philippines. They're in the ocean. It's big, right? They blow up their fishing boat. They're floating.
Oh, no. So they're actually like,
literally,
this is going to explode.
Blew it up. So I'm watching this and I'm going, wow, this is a terrible idea. I'm sure they're sharks. It is the ocean. They don't have any blood. They don't have anything in the water. Oh, after commercial break, guess what? There's a floating cooler full of blood dumping out of it. They basically chum the water for these 2 guys.
Right.
And all of a sudden, 1 shark came, 2 shark come, 3 sharks. All of a sudden, there's sharks everywhere, and they are swimming around them and bumping into them and trying to separate them. They won't attack.
They're hurting them.
They're literally, they're trying to split them apart.
That's what I mean. They're hurting them out
they're coming in and bumping into them, and they're kind of doing their shark tactics so they don't get killed, and they're like moving them off to the side. And when it starts getting up to nighttime, as it starts getting dusk, they're way more aggressive, and they're kind of coming straight at them.
I need to pause for a second because I I want you to know that one of the most terrifying things I can imagine is it being midnight out in the ocean, and I'm floating, and I get bumped by something. Like, I can't imagine a more terrifying feeling.
Ever since Jaws came out, I don't know that you can get bumped in the ocean and not think you're dying.
It is a shark. If I get bumped in the ocean, period,
it ain't
it's
Flipper.
A shark.
It ain't Flipper.
No, it's not even my friend who I went swimming with. That guy definitely didn't bump me. It was a shark.
Yeah. So in this episode, it starts to become nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
They end up putting them in this net thing, right? Let me get to the kicker. They put them in this net, and the thing is being shaken so much because the sharks are trying to figure out how we can
want to
eat
chew.
you. Oh, because there's a chum bucket everywhere around them. The next day comes up. Oh, guess what? I'm going to make you guess.
No, I get to guess. Let's see.
So pretend there's a producer on this boat over there. It's a big boat. He's scared. He doesn't want to get in the water.
Wait, so
and he has an idea. You don't see that, right? But he has an idea. So what do
Mm-hmm.
you think his idea is?
Someone's got to get out of this net.
They put both these yahoos back in the water to see what they will do.
Wait, the people?
The two in the water that was in the net.
Right.
The sharks calmed a little.
Right. Well, we took the coolers out for a minute.
They made them get back in the water.
No net?
No net.
What?
They left the net in because...
Just in case.
What if these sharks are really hungry? And
we brought them out here and haven't fed them for 3 days.
Lo and behold, they ended up getting back in the net. My memory may not be right, but I believe it was not very long, and they just got back in the net because the sharks all appeared literally instantly, and they want to eat these two guys. And they left them out there for maybe 2-3 days. I'm probably messing up how long it was, but it was to the point of time where they were getting really cold and the sharks were getting extremely aggressive, like nailing this cage and like bumping into them and making this like, because it's not really a cage. It's literally like a floating circle with a bottom net in it to where kind of, sort of, the sharks have access to them, kind of. Imagine just getting bumped around.
No,
Doesn't it sound fun?
How much?
Oh,
How
for
much
me to do that?
for you to get in there? And I don't want you
Get in the net or get in the water?
both and. Like, I want to know how much for you, because we'll assume they don't really know that these people are going to survive. Because I don't know. Like,
They're shark experts, Sam.
My bad.
Shark
But
expert.
you are not. So we'll say you.
If
you just
fear
get in the net.
makes them hungrier, they would eat me instantly.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. They would learn to fly if fear was a motivator.
I don't even know that my body would go into the water.
Just a tip? You just
No,
go,
I think that it wouldn't physically go in. Somehow
Just
I would grow
hover?
a wing out my butt and I would be hovering. I don't know that there's an amount of money to get me out of the net.
No, yeah. If I'm
think-
going to get into the net and the producer on the boat, like, I don't have enough middle fingers to throw at this guy when he goes, yeah, but like this time without the net.
So if we're in Fear Factor world,
Okay.
Fear Factor world, hey, you get in this net, you get to win the game show. And we've been chumming the water for like a week. I would first want to know, can I get bit? Maybe.
Yeah, the answer is going to be maybe. That's what I'm going to tell
Okay.
you.
Maybe. Okay. If I sit right in the middle, will I get bit?
Maybe.
Less of a chance.
No,
Okay.
I'm not even going to give you that. Maybe.
Well, they didn't. I mean, they were inside that net for quite a while. They didn't get bit, but they were getting bumped around a lot. They had big, thick wetsuits on too. So I'm probably going to say it's kind of like saying, how much is your leg worth?
Right. Yeah, like, that's what I'm getting. I'm like, oh, man, I'm just basically selling body parts at this point.
I wanted to say a number, and then I'm like, well, that's just like, what if my leg's gone? So
Just
the question is like, how much for my leg?
Assuming that you don't bleed out and just die afterwards.
Oh, the producer will get me probably.
Thanks, producer.
Probably like 20 million.
20 million. I'll be honest. I'm a much cheaper. Like,
No.
I'm afraid I'm going to die from a shark, and I don't think 20 million is my number.
20 million means if you chop off my leg, I can pay like 7 people to carry me around all the time.
Oh, you just
Forever.
You just Cleopatra this thing. You sit in a basket.
Gonna have to do something. I mean, you want a number? That's where I'm
20
at.
million.
Like 20 million, I think
million,
for the rest of my life, I could really have an awful lot of help for 20 mil.
So
I'm just saying that it's just a
I get
choice.
it.
Like that would be
you are insuring your livelihood to some degree with $20 million. So you've thought about this way too much. I was just putting how much money do I want?
I mean, if I was on the spot and I was maybe like a cocktail or two in, I don't know, $600. I don't know for sure.
So wait, now I'm gonna butcher this math. A cocktail will immediately knock off nearly $20 million.
I mean, if you take the edge off and everyone's competitive and there's like 3 dudes that are going to get in, I'm not going to be the guy that's not going to do it. I mean,
but solo, $20 million. Solo and sober, $20 million. But with a friend who will go, I'll do it if you do it, $600.
I mean, it sounds so stupid, but I've jumped out of a plane multiple times, and doing it by yourself is a completely different thing than doing it. I mean,
who am I here impressing?
Yeah, so I have jumped out of a plane by myself, and the fly up of pure terror was not exactly enjoyable. And then the next time I skydived with like 12 of my buddies and you, didn't even have any fear.
Nothing.
I'm looking around like, this is going to be the awesomest thing we've ever done.
That's the first time I have ever done it. Yeah. So you had your second experience. Yeah. That was my first. So we get up there, and I'm like the whole ride, I'm fine. Feel great. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
That door opens, and everybody, and he's at the edge of it. And I watched him estimate distance in a second. Like that door opened, and he goes, like the body threw up in the mind. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I watched him grip the rails of that thing. Like you
talking about Carl?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to call him out in the middle of the interwebs, but yeah.
I'm sure he'll listen. He likes listening to us talk, so he'll get to hear this. I'll never forget as long as I live. This is going to be so much fun. On the flight up, Carl is terrified of heights. He's one of my buddies. Terrified of heights. They strap everybody up on similar height people. So you've got me, I got the tall guy, you got the next guy, he's a little shorter.
Yep.
You got the next guy, all these different heights. And then you got Carl. He gets this guy with him. And the whole time, he's got his head laying back. He's so scared. And of all people that are scared of heights, they put him in the doorway.
Yeah.
They put him in the doorway. And it's just there for him to look out and be terrified. And the vein in his forehead, it's just pure panic. Have you seen a panic face? That is the most panic face I've ever seen in my life.
They opened it up halfway up. Like, that was the best part. We're going, all the doors are shut, and then they're just like, hey, let's check on the sky really fast. And he goes, like, he physically moved from near to far.
Yeah.
And then they shut it down again, like, all right, that was a good look. Let's get back up there. And then we start climbing again. And in that moment, I thought, we're never getting off this plane because Carl is going to grip that exit so tightly that we're just not going to get out. And Carl's a monstrously strong human.
Yeah, I mean, skydiving in essence, though, is probably the coolest experience ever. And especially when you got everybody that you know, and they're like, what an exciting moment. Just tumble. Yeah. And then you lay on the ground, and you're
high fives all around.
Oh, yeah.
There is that moment when maybe it's just me. Maybe I have this moment. I watched Carl go out. I think you were number 2, right? You were in close.
I was number. I think I was 3. Okay. I think someone was in front of me.
So I was right in there.
I think it was you.
I would say I was right in there. So
because you went through the cloud and then I went through the cloud.
Right. So then that's what it was.
Yeah.
So Carl goes out and I watch this and then I get up there and I thought in my head I'm like there's like 6 or 7 of us. One of our chutes might not open. That's as
you're doing percentages. You're like, well, if it's a 10% chance, we're gonna hit that.
All right, here we go. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. And I got to the edge and I was like, well, his hasn't opened yet. Maybe it's him. And that was okay then. As soon as I saw it, well, maybe he's the guy whose chute doesn't open. I was good.
Sorry,
I was golden.
Carl.
And I jumped. Man. At that point, I was all in.
Isn't the moment though? The cockpit door. You get to it. The guy's cramming you in the doorway because you got a certain amount of time you got to jump. And the feeling of looking down at the ground, but yet everything. And where we were at, we were next to the Hoover Dam, had the Vegas Strip, golf courses in the middle of a desert, mountains, a river. I mean,
you see everything.
I don't know that there could be a better venue for skydiving.
It was pretty cool. Yeah.
I mean,
having never done it before, It was great.
My first one was in a farm field. Way better.
Better than the farm field.
Oh, not even like, I'm telling you, the view that you got in that experience far surpasses.
So just don't. I'm done.
Why would you, if you were going to go, then you either have to beat the view. Like the Strip, the Hoover Dam, the golf course in the middle of a desert, like that feeling, I think it would be way cool to do it over the ocean.
Yeah.
That would be
super cool.
That'd be
now,
way cool.
I've seen Top Gun, and I would immediately think of Goose and how that man, you jump out of a plane, you're just dead. You're going to die, and your parachute's going to be all around you. I'm going to have Tom Cruise come pick me up, and there's going to be...
Maybe we should bring machetes if we ever do that. I don't want to get wrapped up in the water. And
Oh, you're talking to get out of the... I thought we were fighting sharks all of a sudden with the machetes.
I don't want sharks.
No.
Never the sharks.
So maybe not over the ocean. Maybe like...
I don't know, though. It's a pretty epic experience. I feel like I have to know what jumping out of a plane over the ocean is. I hope I can get my daughters to do it with me. I think that'd be sweet.
But visualize this. You're going out. You've got your machete because you're going to need to cut out of this
If
thing.
I'm jumping over the ocean, I'm bringing a knife.
Right. Boom, though. You hit the water and oops, you cut yourself.
Oh, man.
Now you got blood in the water.
Where do you come up with these dreadful ideas? Like,
I'm just, like that's immediately
all I think of is a frenzy of sharks.
Yeah,
instantly when you hit the water, they caught the first drip a mile away.
They going. Yeah, that's, you know what? I'm good. We'll just do it on land, near the water. I'll land near the water. I don't need to be over the water.
I don't know. Yucky. I don't like sharks. I've got a question for you. Retirement. We just saw the Rams win the Super Bowl. Andrew Whitworth says that he's going to retire on top, which I don't blame him. He's like 40 or so. I can't believe he's even still in the league at the top of his games in the starting lineup. Kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. But the question I would think would be fun to discuss would be, what about that time frame in the middle of your career, or when you see these athletes, some of them retire before their prime and some of them retire after. You think of Tom Brady. He just retired. Mm-hmm. He's almost 45 years old. He kind of said that he was going to go until he was 45, didn't quite make it there. But what do you think drives you to retire before your time?
Oof, I don't know that. I think some of it is you're trying to figure out, it's all a guessing game. Like, when is my time? Have I prime? Have I hit my prime? Have I not? I feel like I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. Do I have the means to retire? Like, I think a lot of those questions play in, but it is really like it's a guessing game.
Do you walk away before the end of your prime? Are you a walk away from the end before your prime?
Well, I think it depends on what you're gluing it to. Like, so firefighters are known to retire early, but our bodies can't do that forever. And so the question is, like, do you stop doing that when you still can, or do you wait until you really can't anymore and you put somebody else in jeopardy? I mean, especially for like a lineman, his job is to protect somebody else.
Right.
And so if he goes out after he's capable, I mean, the guy behind you, I mean, you're going to get benched anyway because you're not doing your job. So, I mean, in his scenario, it's a pretty stark, like, yes or no, you're accomplishing your goal. I think it's harder when you're not. It's more nebulous. Like, for instance, how do you determine whether you're on top right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm the person that thought Tom Brady should keep going. Yeah. I'm the kind of person that I would grind until the wheels fell off the bus and the shoulder doesn't work, the knee doesn't hurt, everything hurts. I would have to be forced out of it. And it's
to what end? Like, what would force you out?
Team won't sign a contract.
Oh, they're just saying
you get the boot, and then I'll go home and have to figure out my life and figure out my new identity. And
well, that did happen to him.
Who's this?
Team wouldn't sign Brady in this case.
Oh,
team
no.
wouldn't sign the contract. Became
a free agent. Somebody picked him up in 16 minutes of being a free agent.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but that happened. Someone said you're too old.
I don't know if that's true. We'll have to look that up for sure, because the Patriots, I don't know what happened there. Did he force retirement so he could move on? Did he? I don't remember. I think he went to free agency because he was ready to move on.
Yeah. I think there's enough issue in this. There's enough issue in this topic that I would say there was some sort of forcing going on. Whether it was from, coaching staff, whether it was from the ownership.
You just mean some kind of conflict
Well,
maybe money,
whether it's conflict or whether it's like, hey, we don't see you carrying us for the next 10 years and we want a quarterback that can.
Sure.
Whatever that looks like, I don't think he voluntarily was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and just get picked up by another team. Like,
right.
I don't think that's what happened. But let's say that it didn't. Let's say that in your case, like, you're trying to determine, am I on top? Am I in a good place? Because in the business world and anything like that, like, if it's physical, it's just physical. Like, can you do the job or not? But as soon as it starts becoming like why would you retire as a broker? Like, you can still make deals. You can still do that. Why would you retire if there's no physical part to your job?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't.
You should keep going.
Yeah, why not? You got to try to do things you love, and I think that's why we're doing this podcast. I think it'll be fun to do this forever. It's really opens your mind to thinking and doing all those kinds of things and trying to discuss topics and help people out the best you can. I really like the idea of that. But to stay on task, I mean, I just really thought it was kind of interesting, that thought process of when you see athletes and what their decision-making is. It doesn't seem like everybody gets pushed out. It seems like there's this new wave of athletes that before they break their body down too much are willing to get out. Do you think that's because the amount of money that they have in their pockets to where they're more than satisfied and they want to keep a little bit of their youth body? Or do you think there's other things going on?
I mean, put me in the same scenario. I would be thinking similar types of things. Like, I would be thinking, how many more times can I get hit? How many more times can I do 2-a-days to start up my, spring training?
Do records play in?
I don't know. How attainable are the records? Like, the Ironman record is obviously on the table as long as you can last. But at that point, I don't know. I think it all has to do with how attainable is the record. If it's really close, I probably push myself a little bit longer. You got a bunch of people that are bumping up against different records. Tight end records are getting over. Like, no one thought Tony Gonzalez's tight end record would ever be beat because he was a one-of-a-kind tight end in a time that didn't exist. But now you got like 3 tight ends that are very similar in how they operate. And we saw 2 of them in the same game just 3 weeks ago now. So, like, the tight end changed, and now his record is very attainable. So, I mean, I guess if the record is attainable, I maybe stay in and try and push for it. But I don't know how long I stay when, that hurts. I can't recover anymore. I'm broken again. Like, Gronkowski was in a cast, exaggeratedly, like 90% of his career, right? Like, that he was beat up.
He's still playing. I mean, he signed again, or I think he's planning on signing with a different team again. So he's going for it more. I always just find it so interesting when you see different players and you see their skill levels, and you don't ever hear about many of them talking about the records. But when you get towards the end part of your career, I wonder why that's not more of a driver. For me, that would be an extreme driver to say, I'm going to go for 2 or 3 more years and I want to try to hit X, whatever. Maybe that's what some of these guys are doing, but I would just think it's just always so sad when I saw Tom Brady retire and you're like, man, somebody's going to catch that maybe. You just never know. If he could, he's still on the top of his game. He really still could put up a lot more numbers. He's at the top of nearly every chart. But man,
you're saying if he stayed another 2 more years, 3 more years, 4 more years.
Who's playing to when they're 45?
Right, and now all of a sudden,
playing to 46?
The sheer number of yards you can put up, could anyone catch it?
Yeah, my own selfish reasons. It's like, just keep going. You're going to you'll be the best quarterback in all generations, and we would have got to witness it if you continually kick that ball down the road. But, at the same time, I feel like my life's always gone in like 10-year increments.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably been playing football for a minute.
I was going to say, he's been playing football for at least 2 of those 10-year increments.
Yeah.
Like, that's a long time. And
I don't blame him.
And he knows the game well, and he's a fantastic example of what a student of his career looks like. I mean, he's been effective since day one and is effective all the way till, I don't even know how many days this is, the last day.
I tell you one of the best attributes of Tom Brady, which I don't feel like gets enough conversation. We just saw all these football games going through the playoffs. Amazing games, a lot of offense, fast pace, quick scoring. I went to the Chiefs game. I posted that video or whatever, and it was a great experience. It was that back and forth game with the Bills. And I see both these quarterbacks score in 10, 30, 40 seconds, different possessions down the field. No one is talking about or analyzing the idea that why is Tom Brady's method of hold the football for the whole last part of the game not more of a factor on these quarterbacks? I would argue that Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen, either one of them, why did you let the other team get the ball back?
Like, why didn't you just keep running the ball?
Tom Brady has that many Super Bowl wins because when he got the ball at the end of the football game, you never got it back. So all we got to do is go down, have no time on the clock, kick a field goal, we'll go home with the W. All we got to do is go home and get a touchdown. You're going to have 3 seconds to catch the ball, and then it's game over.
Yeah.
Some of these younger quarterbacks, they have so much firepower that I'm just wondering when that becomes a thing. Is anyone going to sit down and talk about how Tom Brady's ability to manage a game made him the best quarterback that ever lived?
I mean, it is funny because there were those moments, I'm thinking specifically about that game with Bills and the Chiefs, where because it felt like so much of a shootout, everything felt possible. And I remember when Tom Brady would be in a game and the ball got to him, it was like, ooh. And we're done now because he could close the door. And that's just it's a depressing game to watch. I will say if I'm
manager, man.
Yeah. If I'm somebody though that I'm trying to sell the sport of football, I want to sell a Bills Chiefs game. I don't want to sell, somebody that can, because if you think about a lot of his wins, 3-point wins.
Oh, yeah.
Like a ton of them were 3-point wins.
You wonder if you got Tom Brady in a bar 10 years from now, not going to play, secrets are coming out. I wonder where that is on his hierarchy of importance to him of clock management and possessions. You think of being able to throw the deep ball, hit somebody on a crossing route, keeping everybody on the same page. All those things are elements, but I wonder where that is because it's most definitely a big part of his game.
Right. Well, and what it really comes down to is can I execute a first down? Can I get a first down? Because that's the way you get to keep the clock. And so it really was, can I get into the place where I can just chew 10 yards at a time? Because if I choose and if I jump out and I grab like 40 yards, 80 yards, some sort of ridiculous play, while it's great, I've given up the clock because I needed to get 4 first downs, not 1.
Well, think of the Bills and the Chiefs game, that specific playoff game. At the end of the game, of course, the last possession they had, they got down and kicked the field goal as fast as possible because that was the only option. But when you get the ball with 2 minutes left, rather than getting 3 passes to get down the field, and I get it, you take what you can get. But at the same time, what is the difference in what Tom Brady did? I mean, if his mentality is just get first down after you have 3 downs, that's the game.
He played I think he played a much more methodical style, and it could be a lot to do with like Belichick and things like that. But there's a fatigue that goes on when you are not getting a big play, when you're a big play team. And those two teams, Bills and Chiefs, the big play teams, like they jazz the whole team. Like everyone gets on fire for that. And then they play with passion and they're just in a different zone. Brady always seemed to play like in this weird professional space where it's like, hey, we're just going out here, we're going to work. And so that means I'm going to get 4 first downs and we're going to kick a field goal. And we're going to be comfortable down after down, knowing that all we need is 8 more yards, 3 more yards, 1 more yard. All right? 8 more yards, 2 more yards. All right? And just methodically pushing down the field. That is a very tiring football game to run. You get fatigued on not having the excitement, not having the win.
It is not as much fun to watch by any means. I mean, being at that game, watching them go down the field as fast as possible is a much more enjoyable game. But I don't know. You just kind of wonder when that Tom Brady thing will lead into some of these newer quarterbacks. We've got a lot of young talent in the league right now. It's a lot of fun to watch. But I think the ones that can actually embrace that one key element and put it in their game. How do you stop a guy that has a cannon for an arm? There's 3 or 4 of them in the league now. How do you stop a guy that holds the ball the whole entire game and can convert?
Yep.
That'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that is going to be the thing that turns the maturity of the younger quarterbacks. Like you want a quarterback that can mature with their abilities. So sure, you can throw a cannon, you can out sprint the defense for just that enough to get your down. You can do those sorts of things, but then at some point, you're 45 and you're trying to continue to do these things. And what you really need to do is just make sure you can get your first downs. And so I think clock ownership and things like that probably develop as you mature, and maybe not physically slow down, but maybe.
Right.
But you also mentally slow down and recognize, like, and I'm not taking away from like Patrick Mahomes' ability to play chess with the game. Like, dude is smart and they make really good decisions. But I think your decision making changes when you're
trying to crawl down the field,
when you're really trying to just own that clock. And that's as much your coach and the plays that he wants to pick as it is your player and the plays that he wants to throw.
Right. Here's one good example. When Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, all of a sudden he was throwing the deep ball. And it's kind of funny because everyone thought he just didn't have an arm anymore. He couldn't throw anymore. While him and Belichick are probably chuckling the entire time he's at the Patriots, saying, you guys just still don't get it, do you? Our offense is use up all the clock, get a first down, and then get another one after 3 downs. And if you can always execute the third down,
I'll always
then
hit
we
my
win,
spot.
and they never score more than 16 points.
Right. I don't even need a great, like, I would like a great defense. I don't even need a great defense because I'm just not going to give them a chance to be on the field.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. We'll have to see how it goes as far as the development of these players. But I really, Chiefs fan here. We're Kansas City residents. I hope that old Pat Mahomes takes a look at some Tom Brady film. He's got $250 million. Maybe bump him a check. Tom's got a lot of money too.
Here's the deal though. Mahomes has played him a couple times. Like he has felt the sting of that clock management. Like that if there's no other reason to learn, it's because that's what beat you. And I would hope you want to take that play out of his book.
But it's a completely different style offense. It's not very appealing for these young guns that can chuck it 60 yards down the field every time.
And the personalities that electrify when they make some sort of massive play in front of the defense. Like it's a big deal, and it's so much more fun to watch.
It really is. Really is. Thanks a lot for listening to the show today. I'd really appreciate if you'd like the video if you found value in it, and subscribe to the channel, clicking that notification bell so you also receive notifications for future videos that could help you out as well. If you have any questions about the content, leave a comment below and I'll be sure to interact with you as quickly as possible there. I've created a website called kbandstraining.com in 2010. We've been around for a long time with high quality resistance bands and durable equipment. I also have provided nearly 1,100 drills and videos for fitness training and athlete performance for youth athletes. So support my work. If you enjoy the content and you'd like me to continue doing what I'm doing, I would love the support. Thanks a lot for listening.